right, perfect. I'm super excited for our conversation today. Today, I'm going to share with you some real tangible tricks and hacks that have helped me establish some long-held habits. That if you start to implement this, you're going to start to see some awesome results right away. Okay? And I'm reminded of something that John C. Maxwell once said. And John C. Maxwell is an absolute legend in the personal development industry. He's somebody that I really look up to and admire as a mentor and as a leader. And one of the things that he said is that you'll never change your life until you change something that you do daily. And he went on to say that the secret of your success is found in your daily routine. Okay? And, you know, in the last video, we talked a little bit about how your habits are the building blocks of our lives. And if we want a different result, we don't need to look any further than the little habits that we perform on a daily basis. Okay? Now, if we're looking to make a change in our behavior or in our results, a lot of times people make some pretty simple mistakes. And some of the ones that I see most commonly are things that they have a tendency to overcommit or take on too much too soon. Okay? And, you know, sometimes it might look like, well, you know, they want to exercise or lose a little bit of weight. Okay? And maybe it's been years since they've been in the gym, and their goal is that they're going to start exercising 5 times a week, or maybe even if it's 3 times a week. And the expectation is that, you know, it's going to be for an hour every time, and that they're going to do A, B, and C. And typically what happens is, well, like I said, they overcommit. And so more often than not, one of a couple of things happen. Sometimes their results don't come as quickly as they'd like, okay? Or the results that they're looking for don't match the output or the effort that they're putting into it. And so they get discouraged and they give up. Okay? Or another common thing is that, you know, sometimes what happens is they've taken on so much, or they try to overcommit, and they end up getting hurt. They're overextending themselves, and they either hurt themselves or they burn out or crash. All right? And so what I would suggest instead is our approach should be to start ridiculously small. All right? And I want to share with you a couple of tips or some tools that have been hugely beneficial for me when I think about things like this. Okay? But our approach moving forward is going to be to break it down into its smallest, most ridiculously small step in order to ensure success. Okay? Now, as I think about this, I think about James Clear, who is the author of a book called Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read Atomic Habits, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing book, and it's one that I refer to and reference often. Okay? So in James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, he says that the truth is that a habit must be established before it can be improved. And so going back to, you know, my example there of how oftentimes people like to overcommit, you know, essentially what he's saying is that what we really need to do is to establish the habit before we can optimize the habit. Okay? And so how we do that is by utilizing what he calls the 2-minute rule. Okay? And essentially what he suggests is that a new habit should take less than 2 minutes to complete. Okay? So if you're looking to start exercising, just start with 2 minutes. Like, make it like next to impossible to fail. Okay? Like 2 minutes or less. All right? Or if you're looking to start reading more, okay, start with 2 minutes. 2 minutes minimum. Okay, and sometimes when I think about this, I think like, well, 2 minutes is the required amount, and anything above and beyond that is just bonus. But at minimum, 2 minutes. Okay? Or maybe you have a habit of you're wanting to start to meditate a little bit more. And again, it would be the same thing, just starting with 2 minutes. And the reason behind this is that the habit is more important than the intensity. Okay? The habit is more important than the intensity. And over time, the really cool thing is, or what we're really doing here throughout this process, is we're creating the identity of somebody who shows up every day and performs that activity regardless of how they feel, even if it's only for 2 minutes. You begin to start to create the habit of somebody who shows up and reads, or who shows up and works out, or who the identity of somebody who's a runner or who meditates. And that identity and that belief of being somebody who's that type of person is ultimately what propels and creates the scenario that makes it possible to sustain that new behavior. Okay, remember we talked about the importance of that belief, and our belief drives our behavior. And what we're doing by demanding that we perform this new habit for a minimum of 2 minutes is we're creating the belief or the identity that we're the type of people who perform that behavior. Okay? So that's the first one. That's the first little hack here, is the 2-minute rule. All right? The second hack that I want to share with you, or the second little tip that I want to share with you, is a thing called habit stacking. Okay? And habit stacking is essentially the idea that if there's a new habit that you're trying to establish, rather than just trying to implement it into your day, what you want to do is you want to stack it on top of an already existing habit. Okay? And so, for example, in the past, some ways that I've utilized the habit stacking principle personally is like with taking my multivitamins, and what I've done is I've put my little, multivitamin container right next to my toothbrush. Now, brushing my teeth is an already established habit, okay? And so when I see my toothbrush and I'm brushing my teeth and my vitamins are sitting right there, it significantly increases the likelihood that I'm going to take my vitamins, right? Similarly, I wanted to establish the habit of journaling, and specifically starting a gratitude journal. And so what I did, this was going back a number of years ago, is I had a journal that I put right beside my coffee pot. And if you're anything like me, my days typically start with some coffee. And so what I did is while I'm going to the coffee pot and it's brewing, I'm taking a couple of minutes to write down a few things that I'm grateful for and priming my mind to be positive and on the lookout for more things to be grateful for. Okay? And more on that later. All right? But another one might be reading. If you've got a habit to read more, it's a lot easier to follow through on that if you put a book right beside your nightstand, or if you have it somewhere that's already attached to an existing habit, crawling into bed at night, or if you got it right on your pillow or something like that, where you physically have to see it or touch it, pick it up and move it, is going to significantly increase the likelihood that you follow through on that task. So the two little tricks or hacks that I wanted to share with you today are, one, the 2-minute rule. If you're trying to establish a new habit, start ridiculously small, with no more than 2 minutes, because establishing the habit is more important than the intensity. Okay? And then the second one is habit stacking. And that's that you want to take a new habit and stack it on top of an already existing habit. And I gave you a couple of examples, but I'd love to hear what your approach to this is going to be. And so yeah, let's make sure that we talk about this on our next call. Right on.